Here we have a Galaxy DX86V. We're going to discuss the attributes of this radio today. Now here's a caution sign that comes with it that says this radio is intended for use by amateur radio operators. A license from the FCC is required for transmission on this radio in the United States. Transmission without a license may be unlawful. Now, that's a true statement except for the first sentence. It says this radio is intended for use by amateur radio operators. It is not. This radio is intended to be an export CB. That's what they call it, export radio. Now I'm going to stop short of saying that this radio is completely useless out of the box in unmodified form, but I will say that there's only one class of person that would find this radio at all useful out of the box, and that's a very small portion of hams who would be buying this radio, who first of all have a general class or above license, because this radio is not, it won't do anything that is legal for a technician ham. General class and above. And the only thing that it would be good for out of the box is a general class and above ham who wanted it strictly for operating on 10 meters AM, because that's the only thing it really covers. It is a single sideband radio, but let's look at the frequency coverage. Uh-oh, I went too far. Okay, there's 40. Channel 40 is 29.205. Channel 1 is 28.765. Now 29.2 is the top of the AM subband on 10 meters, and the bottom of the AM subband is 29.0. Channel 1, 28.765. That's above the portion that's normally used for single sideband. You could use single sideband there, but pretty much nobody does. The reason for that is because technicians have use of single sideband on 28.3 to 28.5. Single sideband only. They can't even use AM there. That's a technician, that's their only HF phone privilege, is 10 meters, 28.3 to 28.5, single sideband. And because of that fact, that's where pretty much all of the single sideband activity is on 10 meters. So, you know, you could, if you're a general class and above and you wanted to talk to somebody on single sideband, talk to your buddy or whatever, have a SCAD or have a net or whatever for your friends who are all general class and above, they could get on 28.765 to 28.995 and operate single sideband. Or they could even, you know, encroach on up into the AM portion. Of course, this doesn't go, channel 40, it doesn't go up into the FM portion, but it doesn't have FM, so that's you know, it doesn't need to go up there since it doesn't have FM. Now, why would anybody buy this to do AM only? Well, I've heard that Galaxy is well known for having a good, sounding good on AM. I don't know how true that is. I assume it's probably true because that's what the people who use it say. The CBers, I should say, who use it say that it sounds good on AM. And that's pretty much all Galaxy radios. So that's really the only legitimate use for this radio in unmodified form. And I use the term modified because that's what people call it. And, you know, would you really call that a modification when it's designed to do that in order to make it more useful? What it does is the standard modification on it just makes it into a CB. It makes it into an illegal export CB. And that's what people buy it for. And I'll show you a couple of things about that. First of all, if you look at, let me see if I can zoom in on that control. I guess it's not gonna focus on it. There it is. Now, CDE, Charlie Delta X-ray, Echo, sorry, Charlie Delta Echo. Now, that is the band set and 3-position switch. It's probably a single pole double throw center off, and it says in the manual that sets the frequency range. Out of the box, it does nothing. Now, if it were intended to be used out of the box, why would it have a switch? You know, this is a small package. It doesn't have room for extra switches. In fact, they left out a lot of the switches that the bigger Galaxy radios have. So why would they have a non-functional switch if it were designed to be used out of the box? That's because it's not. And what it is designed to do, once you do the standard modification that everybody does on these, what it does is it does CB, period. It does 40 channels CB in the center position, and then it does in the E position, it does what CBers, freebanders, whatever, call the uppers, which is 40 channels above the standard CB channels. And in the C position, it does the lowers, which is 40 channels below the standard CB 40 channels. Interesting thing is, once you make that modification, it opens up that feature, but it will no longer do 10 meters. All it does is 40 CB channels, the uppers and the lowers, in AM, upper sideband, and lower sideband. And another thing that I noticed, though, is right here on the Clarifier, it has the inner knob is fine, and the outer knob is coarse. And I've discovered from testing it that what it actually does is the inner knob actually is a clarifier. It's receiver incremental tuning. So if you're sitting there talking to some people on single sideband, all on one frequency, and somebody comes in and they're off frequency because their radio is not aligned correctly or whatever, then you use your clarifier to, when they're talking, to tune it so you can hear them properly, but without changing your transmit frequency. You stay on the proper frequency for transmit, but you can tune them in. That's what the RIT is for, the clarifier. And what a lot of the CB guys like to do is they they call it unlocking the clarifier. What it does is it makes it so that it changes your transmit frequency as well as your receive frequency. Now, I disagree with that being a good thing. You know, if you're losing your receiver incremental tuning by tying transmit to it, I don't see where that's a, you know, you're losing a function basically. You're losing your RIT and replacing it with what CBers used to call a slider. And the slider just moves the transmit and receive frequency a few kilocycles in one direction or the other of the main frequency, the actual channel frequency. But one thing I've discovered from working with this a little bit and checking it out is that the coarse clarifier is actually a slider. It moves both the transmit and receive, so that is kind of a good thing, because it means that, let's say for example, if you bought this just to use on 10 meter AM, let's say channel 20. Okay, the CB frequencies are spaced 10 kilocycles apart, but on the 5 kilocycle. So it's 29.005, or in the case of CB it would be 27.005, 27.015, 27.025, and so on like that. And so the reason CBers like having a slider is so they can move to the alts or naughts or the zeros. And that is actually a good thing if you're using it as a 10 meter AM radio, because the standard 10 meter AM frequencies are not on the 5s, they're on the zeros. So what you can do is use your slider and turn it down to 29.0 and go up to channel 30, 29.1, and go up to channel 40, and instead of 29.205 it's 29.200, and those are the three most commonly used 10 meter AM frequencies. So I was pleased to find that the coarse clarifier actually is a slider. And I found that out by putting it on upper sideband on somewhere down around here, 28.8 something, and transmitting with my call sign, of course, and listening to it on another radio, and then moving the coarse clarifier and listening to see if my transmit frequency changed, and it did. So, like I said, that's a good thing. That's a useful feature, even if I were just going to use it on 10 meter AM. And as I mentioned before, though, the standard modification makes it operate on the 40 CB channels plus the uppers and the lowers, but it no longer operates on 10 meters. So at that point it's just an illegal CB, period. And when I say illegal, I'm not saying that people should not be doing that or whatever. I'm saying, you know, it's illegal, and I don't condone it or whatever, because I can't do that, you know. But anyway, I'm just saying illegal, because if you were to do that and you got caught, you could be in trouble. But one thing that I wanted to do with this radio, and what I intend to do with it, is I've heard that the board that is in this one is the same as some of the larger Galaxy radios that have more features and specifically have more band set positions. So they have 6 or 8 band set positions instead of just 3. And those will actually cover all of 10 meters. And including the low end. And so what I want to do is kind of tinker with it a little bit and see if some of the pad positions that you can solder to or whatever will enable it to do those things by adding additional switches on the back panel or whatever. And also the plus 10 kilocycle switch, which I think is on the board here. I haven't looked at it, but I've heard that it is on the board. There's just not a switch for it. And what that does is the CB frequency list actually skips some channels. And the plus 10 KC switch that's on some of the bigger radios allows you to get into those frequencies that are skipped. And so that's a useful thing. And I'm pretty sure that this does have that because I've heard of other people with DX86Vs putting a switch on the back panel and enabling that. So anyway, that's those are the attributes of this radio as it comes out of the box. And after I tinker with it a little bit, and I haven't even looked inside it yet, but I intend to make at least one additional video talking about what I discovered once I opened it up. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, keep watching, and you'll be seeing more of this radio. So thanks for watching.